The creation of a true stereoscopic image was only made possible after the announcement in 1839 by Henry Fox Talbot and Louis Daguerre of their photographic processes. Before this event, Sir Charles Wheatstone had conducted experiments over many years and constructed a device which he called a stereoscope, for viewing two drawings, each from a slightly different viewpoint, to create the illusion of a solid object. Being restricted only to drawings of objects and simple landscape sketches, this limited the appeal of his work, which was regarded by many as an intriguing optical toy and a scientific curiosity. With the arrival of photography, his work and equipment were to take on a new importance, and Fox Talbot was to produce several sets of images for the Wheatstone stereoscope. Also, with the coming of photography, there came a demand for seeing the world in this new, realistic way, and with the negative and positive system of Fox Talbot, it was possible to print stereoscopic cards on a large scale. Special cameras had to be designed to produce the two images required for the left and right eyes. These had to have a separation of approximately 2.5 inches or 64 millimeters to correspond to the average human eye spacing. Initially, existing cameras were modified with the single lens being replaced by two, or the lens was moved across between exposures, or the camera was simply allowed to slide by the required amount and two separate photographs taken, provided of course that the subject in front of the lens remains perfectly still between exposures. Cameras in all shapes and sizes were made and improved upon to produce the stereoscopic views. Professional photographers travelled the world to satisfy the demand for these stereoscopic views of every possible subject. These included landscapes, famous buildings and churches, statues and tombs, theatrical stars of the day, to great engineers and inventors. They were the equivalent of today's picture postcard, travel magazine, and Sunday colour supplement all rolled into one. Of course, there had to be devices for viewing the two images to reproduce the original scene in glorious 3 dimensions, and viewers emerged in a wide range of styles and sizes, some being very plain, whilst others had unnecessary scrolls and adornments. The larger scale standing models were supplied with a considerable selection of stereoscopic views placed onto a continuous belt or chain system. During the 1850s to the 1860s, thousands of cheap viewers and millions of cards were sold. On the 1st of May 1851, Queen Victoria, accompanied by Prince Albert, opened the Great Exhibition at the Crystal Palace in Hyde Park. Inside this amazing structure of iron and glass, there was an international exhibition of manufactured goods, inventions and art from around the world, with 100,000 individual items from 15,000 contributors on display. It was a spectacular success and attracted 6 million visitors from Great Britain and abroad during the 6 months of the exhibition. It was during one of her many visits that the Queen was presented with a beautiful stereoscope and a selection of stereoscopic cards. This again produced a surge in popularity of card sales, as the public wanted to see scenes of the British Empire and other far-off lands. Interest declined in the mid to late 1860s, as it was reported that it seemed there was nothing left to photograph, and that the providers of views had exhausted the beauties of the world. With the dawning of the Edwardian age, interest was revived again, with many taking up the expensive hobby of photography. By producing their own photographs and stereo cards, they could now be less formal than those from a studio, and would include family and holiday locations. The First World War, surprisingly, created a demand for cards, as the population were curious to see in depth the trenches and battlefield conditions endured by the troops. Some images were actual scenes, whilst others were restaged for the benefits of early cameras and general safety. During the Second World War, 3D photography would play a unique and vital role, which saw Spitfire and Mosquito aircraft fitted with up to 8 cameras to map and photograph German-occupied territories to locate V-1 and V-2 installations for subsequent bombing raids and their effects. A team of 54 photographic interpreters, working 24 hours a day, examined the 3D images which showed the contours of the land and any possible structures. The 1950s gave us a 3D comic, with Mighty Mouse being published in 1953. Of course, all were supplied with the magic red and green glasses to bring them to life.
Maybe, baby, I'll have you. Maybe, baby, you'll be true.
Unfortunately, it was only a passing fad, and the last comic published was in 1954.
It's funny, honey, you don't care.
Luckily, cinema audiences of the 50s and 60s could still be terrified by Bwana Devil, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, The House of Wax, and many more titles in glorious 3D. And now they're back, bigger and bolder than ever. There is no doubt that as the 3D image has come and gone over the last 174 years, there is a good chance that if the current trend for everything 3D should fade, it will reappear when technology changes once more.